From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and Ciso, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Obviously not in the studio, but thank you so much for tuning in this morning, Tuesday, November 19th, 2024. A packed show for all of y'all today. Obviously, being that it's traveling very early where I'm at, again, what part of the challenges of when I have to take the studio on the road is I've yet to find the perfect mobile espresso machine to join you for a coffee cup cheers. So with that being said, coffee cup cheers to all of y'all. Let's get the show rolling because we have a lot to talk about. Coffee cup cheers. We'll kick off with Palo Alto patching the Zerodays we talked about on the show yesterday. So over the weekend on Thursday and Friday, Palo Alto reported multiple different vulnerabilities and one exploited Zeroday that have been taking place against their firewalls. Those were being worked on over the weekend with a patch emerging yesterday. One of the Zerodays is CVE 2024-0012, which was an authentication bypass flaw that would allow an unauthenticated attacker who has access to the PAN OS management interface to gain admin privileges. The second Zeroday was CVE 2024-90474. This one was spotted in the same attacks. This security hole was described as a medium severity privilege escalation issue that would allow an attacker who has admin permissions to gain root privileges on the firewall. These have all been patched with the latest releases of PAN OS 11.2, 11.1, 11.0, 10.2, and 10.1. So you want to make sure you get that taken care of. The Shadow Server Foundation reported seeing over 6,600 IPs associated with internet exposed PAN OS interfaces. That's down from 11,000 IPs just a week ago. So all in all, we're seeing some tightening of the belts there by Palo Alto users. Not enough though. That's half. The 6,600 would be great if that was down to 600, say, by the end of this week. We continue with a drinking water, kind of an assessment, a passive assessment of the drinking water in the United States. Over 300 drinking waters that serve roughly 110 million people in the U.S. are affected by vulnerabilities that could lead to service disruptions, according to a new report by the EPA's Office of Inspector General. The passive assessment of security defects in 1,062 drinking water systems that serve 193 million individuals revealed a quarter of them could potentially fall victims to attacks, leading to functionality loss, denial of service conditions, and customer information compromise. The assessments covered 5 cybersecurity categories: email security, IT hygiene, vulnerabilities, adversarial threat, and malicious activity, and rated and identified weaknesses with critical to low scores based on their potential impact. As of October, 97 of the assessed water systems, which serve approximately 27 million people, contain critical and high severity issues, according to the report. An additional 211 drinking water systems that cover 83 million people were found to be impacted by medium or low severity weaknesses, having externally visible open ports. So the assessment includes the mapping of digital footprint for each of the investigated systems. The the OIG report also points out that the EPA itself lacks a cybersecurity incident response incident reporting system that water and wastewater systems could use to notify the EPA of cybersecurity incidents, and the agency relies on CISA for that type of reporting. So obviously nothing, the Office of Inspector General for the EPA obviously taking a look at this. Again, water systems should fall under the purview of CISA to begin with. I don't understand why all of these federal agencies are dapping in cyber when they clearly don't have the expertise or capabilities to begin to address the lack of standards that exist within some of our critical infrastructure verticals, right? Like water and so forth. I was speaking to someone yesterday. We're talking about, TSA and in oil and gas and so much more. And it's just like these agencies don't have the expertise. But Congress gave a mandate back in 2018 to create CISA and gave him those expertise. And so why isn't that there? It's a great question to be asked, and hopefully the new administration will consolidate everything under CISA in order to really centralize cybersecurity incident handling, standard setting, and incident reporting. And that would really empower the agency to be a single stop and a single shop for all of these critical infrastructure businesses with an agency that actually understands cybersecurity. But nonetheless, understanding this, drinking water systems are typically run by municipalities. And so they don't really have the budgets. And a lot of times it's a really, really small staff of maybe 3 to 5 people that really work a water system. So if you are in the area and you look at this EPA report, my suggestion as a cybersecurity practitioner, reach out to your local municipality, maybe go talk to the plant manager of the water treatment facility and see what you can do to help them out. And potentially that can help bridge some of those gaps that exist there. Ford itself is launching an investigation after Intel broker and another attacker called Energy Weapon User made claims on the breach forums that they have stolen customer information from Ford. The claims seem to have targeted Ford this month. They allegedly obtained 44,000 customer records, including names, physical addresses, and information on product acquisition. A data sample made public by the attackers indicates the customer may not refer to end user, but rather dealerships that sell Ford vehicles. The sample shows the addresses of various car dealerships from countries around the world. While the information based on its format seems to come from an internal database, it does not appear to be sensitive. Ford for itself are saying that they are aware of the allegations. There's been no breach, and they're investigating. They're investigating the allegation that there has been a breach, and the investigation is active and ongoing. Intel broker has sometimes been very accurate in what he says he's got, and other times has exaggerated. So this is a story that's kind of like, in a few different websites, they're like, oh my God, Jen Easterly is going to step down. First of all, any appointee of any administration for the history of the United States, from the moment this country essentially entered and became a country 248 years ago, political appointees always resign on January 19th. That's been the suit across. That's just the standard of political appointees that have been appointed by previous administration, and new ones coming in, and the new administration may decide or not decide to keep them. So what is tradition is that every single head of every single federal agency that's a political appointee, from CISA to CPP to any other, will essentially submit their resignation letter effective January 20th at noon. And then the new administration decides whether or not to keep him. They don't make that decision January 20th. They typically make that decision sometime beforehand in order to keep continuity, or they'll nominate someone else in order to get confirmed for those positions. The hope here, all right, and I know many people in the federal agency, they all do this. They did this, by the way, back in 2020 when President Biden was coming in. A lot of Trump political appointees, President-elect Trump political appointees resigned, and they were replaced, and some of them were kept on. So that just depends on the administration and the new secretary and their position. One thing to help influence keeping Jen Easterly in play is currently the DHS secretary nominee for President-elect Trump is South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. Writing to Kristi Noem letters of support, encouraging to keep Jen Easterly on, would obviously help the new secretary in understanding the work that Jen has done, Director Easterly has done at CISA, and potentially influence keeping her on for 4 more years. That's something I'll be doing. I'll post that on the Substack probably either later today or tomorrow. I'll post that in the notes on Substack, so you can go check that out, jamesazar.substack.com, with the address of where to send this to the transition team with letters of support for Jen Easterly. I'll also put a sample of the letter that, if you want to print it out, sign it, and send it, would be absolutely amazing in order to help the new administration actually understand that Jen Easterly is an asset to the federal government and not anything else. And again, go to jamesazar.substack.com. I'll post that there later today or in the evening here, as obviously I'm traveling, and so time's of the essence, but I'll be put together a letter. I'll put that in the notes here with the information y'all need in order to take that letter, print it out, sign it, or email it to South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, who will be the incoming DHS secretary once confirmed by the Senate after January 20th. We'll continue with more news there. The recently detailed deep data malware framework was caught exploiting a Zeroday vulnerability in the Fortinet VPN client for Windows to steal credentials, according to Velocity. The deep data is a surveillance framework that relies on multiple plugins to target sensitive information stored in browsers, communication applications, and password managers. It can also record audio using the system's microphone. According to BlackBerry, both deep data and light spy iOS malware have been used by China line and APTs, including APT-41 to spy on journalists, politicians, and political activists in Southeast Asia. Now it's being seen that they're targeting a Fortinet Windows VPN client to extract username and passwords and other information from the process memory by exploiting the Zeroday vulnerability. The bug, which was reported to Fortinet, was confirmed to be affecting the latest iteration of the Fortinet VPN available at the time. It does not have a CVE identifier, appears to remain unpatched, according to Velocity. They also note that the deep data framework has been developed by a Chinese-linked state-sponsored actor that they track as Brazen Bamboo. Love it. More names for these threat actors. They also draw attention to a Windows variant of the light spy malware, which has been used in attacks alongside the known iOS, Android, and macOS variants, noting that the Dragon Egg Android spyware that looked the look at detailed last year is in fact light spy. So all in all, something to keep appraised of. VMware, for their end, are dealing with a critical CVE 2024-38812, which is the vCenter server bug that's reached an exploitation detected stage, and it's a difficult to fix vulnerability. It was first revealed at a Chinese contest 5 months ago. It's now being exploited in the wild, according to the company. The company issued an urgent update to VMSA 2024-0019 bulletin with an acknowledgement of the live attacks and a call to arms to customers to prioritize the deployment of available fixes. They're now confirming the exploitation for CVE 2024-38812 and 38813. VMware didn't share details on the IOCs to help defenders hunt for signs of infection. The CVE carries a CVSS score of 9.8. And so back in September, this was discovered by the Chinese. Apparently, 4 months later, the company was still struggling to patch the bug. And vCenter server instances to remote code exploitation are exposed. The vulnerability is described as a heap overflow in the distributed computing environment, remote procedure call protocol implementation there as well. So there's a bunch of workarounds there. You want to make sure you get those taken care of. Now we'll move to LLM and AI. The researchers at the University of Pennsylvania used an off-the-shelf LLM-backed robot called Unitree Go 2, which uses OpenAI's ChatGPT 3.5 model to process natural language instructions. Initial testing showed that the model's guardrails rejected instruction from researchers to allow the connected robot to carry a bomb and find suitable targets to detonate it around. When they framed their prompt as a work of fiction in which the robot was a villain in a blockbuster hero movie, the LLM was convinced to move towards the researchers to detonate a fake bomb, kind of showing you some of the challenges in jailbreaking LLM. So if you outright say something, it'll say it. And then if you kind of say, pretend you're in a movie and go do X, and it'll actually go around and do it because it looks at it as being fiction, not real, when in reality, it's actually doing a real thing. And that's the difference between human clarity and AI clarity. AI's just an LLM are not yet there, which is something very important to note. Cool research. Go read it. You can obviously find it on our Substack. Finally, an AI company has said that an attacker that fallen victim to a business email compromise that caused them $250,000 in loss. And they say the wire payment is likely to have a material impact on the firm's bottom line. Learning Engines filed their 8K form with the SEC on Monday, notifying the agency of a cybersecurity incident. They say the ongoing investigation revealed that a threat actor illegally accessed the company's environment and certain files on its network, misdirected a $250,000 wire payment, and deleted a number of email messages. The wire payment was not recovered. When it learned of the incident, which has been contained, the company activated its cybersecurity response plan and launched an internal investigation. They did not say when the incident occurred or when it was discovered, but if it wasn't recovered, that's typically more than 4 days. So you can assume that this was something that happened that no one really paid attention to, and there it was. The company reported revenues of $135 million last quarter. They provide automation tools to more than 1,000 companies across several sectors, including healthcare, education, and retail. And so the fallen victim, and they say the $250,000 is likely to have material impact. That just tells you their profitability is just not all there just quite yet. And finally, in Good Guys Prevail again, a Russian man who served as the admin of the Phobos ransomware that extorted millions of dollars from more than 1,000 victims in the U.S. is being extradited from South Korea. Yevgeny Petrosyan, 42, is being extradited to the United States for a court appearance on November 4th, according to a press release with an unsealed 13-count indictment. The Phobos ransomware extorted over $16 million from more than 1,000 victims worldwide, including schools, hospitals, government agencies, and large corporations, according to the DOJ. The Justice Department is committed to leveraging the full range of our international partnerships to combat the threats posed by ransomwares like Phobos. Pitson faces charges of wire fraud conspiracy to commit computer fraud and abuse, as well as 4 counts of extortion in relation to hacking and 4 counts of causing intentional damage to protected computers. Along his co-conspirators, Petrosyan, who is known by the online handles of Darkson and Zimmerman X at times, developed Phobos and offered access to the ransomware to other criminals in exchanges for fees from successful attacks. So he was captured in South Korea and now extradited to the United States to face the best of our justice system. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow live 9 a.m. Eastern with all the latest and greatest. Please make sure to subscribe, follow, and share. Comment below. We'll get to all of these comments after the show. Until then, have a great rest of your day, y'all. And most importantly, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.